Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And welcome to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. Alright, another day, another week, here we are. We got games going on, not today, we got games going on tomorrow. Manchester United versus Real Madrid. We got Tottenham versus Milan, and also Barcelona versus Roma going on tomorrow. Little Champions League rematch right there. Let's not forget that Roma did knock out Barcelona in the Champions League this past season on a shocker. But let me tell you what's going on today. Mexico, of course. I mean, it's like clockwork. They need another coach. I want to talk about Ibrahimovic scored a hat trick yesterday in his MLS match against Orlando City. He's been doing really well since he's got in there, so we'll give a little MLS update. And I'll give some thoughts on the league as a whole. Third segment, we're going to talk about Neymar. He has admitted that he dives, but also admits that, yes, he does get fouled a lot on the pitch. And I'm inclined to agree with him there. But we'll give my thoughts on that. And then for the fourth segment, we will be talking about anything else going on in the world of football/soccer, whatever you want to call it. So that's what's going on today. And let me tell you something. Expectations are a crazy thing. They could put a lot of pressure on someone. They could put little pressure on someone. Unrealistic expectations can put someone's job in jeopardy when it shouldn't be. I'd like to say that a lot of these CONCACAF teams have unrealistic expectations. Mainly talking about Mexico and the United States men's national team. These teams want to be regarded with the Brazils and all that. They want to play as well as them. They want to pretty much develop players like them. But of course, that's difficult. And Mexico, I think, and their fans have extremely unrealistic expectations. They want World Cup wins. They want to make it to the final. They want to win a tournament. That's the goal. Is that a realistic goal? Not even close. And that's the cold hard truth right there. Because you know what? Mexico doesn't produce Neymars. They don't produce Messis. They don't even produce Mbappes. I mean, right now, I guess you could say Irving Lozano is far and away their best player. And maybe he could end up being as good as maybe Mbappe, or at least getting to that level. But of course, that's going to take some time. They don't have the deep team like a France. They don't have the forwards of an Argentina team. They don't have the flair of a Brazil team. They don't have a midfield of a Spain. They don't have the organization of a Germany. And I think that, like I said, Mexico and its fans need to realize that they're not as good as maybe they think. They have quality on the team. Javier Hernandez, Hector Herrera, Lozano, like I said. But of course, they'll never be able to compete with the top teams, and that's just the way it is. I mean, did you really think that we're going to beat Brazil in that round of 16 matchup? No, it doesn't happen that way. Because when it comes to those knockout stage games, the teams who have the best players usually do come out on top. And Mexico does not have the quality to compete with a Brazil, Argentina, or anything like that. So we move on from that, like I said. I mean, they've lost in what it seems like 8 straight World Cups in the round of 16. Haven't made a quarterfinal since, I think, like 86. That's a problem, I will say. But it's also a problem when you can't keep a manager more than a couple years. That Mexico job is tougher to keep than it is Real Madrid's. And that's saying something, and that's not saying anything good. Mexico is not Real Madrid. They are not close to Real Madrid. But yet again, they try to run as if they are Real Madrid. If you don't win, you get fired. And the fans seem to agree with that method. Of course, they just want results. I mean, who doesn't? But there's a point where if there's no stability there, you're not going to win a thing. Of course, you're going to win a Gold Cup or whatever, as you should, but who cares? It's the Gold Cup. Literally, not one person puts any stock into Gold Cup wins. There's more. It's more of a big deal if you lose a Gold Cup if you're Mexico or the U.S. than it is if you win it. And like I said, that word is stability. That's what Mexico has been lacking: stability. Manager after manager, and no results. Why? Because of stability, lack of. It's a mistake not having Juan Carlos Osorio come back, and of course, it's his decision ultimately not to come back. But I think if the fans were less harsh and the press were a whole lot smarter, then this wouldn't have happened. I've been seeing a lot of the reasons why people didn't like Osorio. His methods was because of the rotations and because of how they played. Never mind the fact that the man was the winningest coach in Mexico's history amongst winning percentage. Never mind that. Oh, they didn't play great soccer. They didn't look good doing it. They won, but who wants to see them win 1-0, 2-1? That is the dumbest rationale, excuse I've seen ever. You really don't want to coach there because watching Mexico is not fun. It's about getting results. I've never understood that with soccer fans either. They want you to win, but they want you to win in style. A win is nothing if you don't do it in style, which is ridiculous. It's all about the wins. You get a win any way you can get it, whether that's playing, whether that's parking the bus, or going all out attack. It doesn't matter. If you win, that's all that matters. Who cares how you played and what you did to get there? I'll never understand the whole winning in style thing. It makes no sense to me. And Mexico fans love to bring up the 7-0 loss to Chile and the 4-1 loss to Germany in the Confederations Cup. 7-0 loss, yes, that was a bad loss. I was there. I saw it firsthand. It was terrible. It's only one loss. A loss is a loss. Losing to Germany, again, a loss is a loss. Did you really think that at the time Mexico could compete with Germany? No. Germany were the better team. Of course, Mexico did get their revenge in the World Cup and beat them 1-0. But Mexico lost to teams that were better than them, and that's just it. Mexico's never going to be a top-tier national team. Ever. 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 And people need to realize that. Enough with these unrealistic expectations, because that's why there's such a revolving door of managers coming in and out with that team. Chances are, Mexico's never going to win a World Cup. And that's fine. Why? Because they don't have the talent to do that. And like I said, everyone needs to start realizing that. The fans, the press, and the federation. You need to start building up with smaller goals. I could care less what these players say. They're not good enough to win a World Cup. Of course, it's everyone's goal to win a World Cup. I'm sure it was Nigeria's goal to win a World Cup. I'm sure it was Tunisia's goal to win a World Cup. I'm sure it was Australia's goal to win a World Cup. Did they? No. It's not going to happen. You got to start off smaller. Maybe reach the quarterfinal. Make that a goal for once. People say, oh, making the quarterfinal a goal is a small team mentality. Mexico's a small team. They're not a Brazil. They're not good enough to think that far. They're not good enough to think, yeah, we have a real chance at winning this. And that's just the way it is. I know it hurts. And I'm sure there's fans out here listening to us who are trying to fight that, but it's the truth. You keep firing coaches, you're going to keep losing. You need to start setting up realistic expectations and goals for that team. And I think their biggest problem is they're going to do the same thing they always do. Hire a coach that used to coach in the Mexican League. Get rid of him and repeat. Hire from without. Don't hire from within. It doesn't work. And I see people saying they need to hire a coach who knows how Liga MX works. Why? All your top players are in Europe. All right? I understand you got your favorite teams out there, but a lot of those guys are not even near the quality of the guys out there in Europe playing for Mexico. So this team really needs to just restart. Meaning with the expectations and the goals. Restart. Because winning a World Cup is out of the cards. It's not happening. Unless somehow, some way, you get a perfect generation where they can do it. That generation was not this past one, and it wasn't the ones from before. Well, it'll be interesting to see who they end up bringing in as their manager. I don't trust them with the hire. I don't think they'll end up hiring a good coach. It's going to be someone they've used before, or a guy who couldn't cut it with some Liga MX team. All right. So we'll see what ends up happening. I think they should hire from some coach from Europe or whatnot. Start off fresh, something new. But of course, they'll do what they always do and fire the guy in a couple of years. So we're going to wrap that up here. Next up, we're going to be heading over to the MLS, giving some thoughts on it. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Spent that first segment basically talking about how the Mexican national team have unrealistic expectations, and that's why they keep going manager to manager. You're not good enough to win a World Cup, at least with this current squad of players, and honestly with the squad of players you've had come in before. That's just the truth. They need to start setting realistic expectations and goals. Enough of this dreaming of that other stuff. All right, Mexico is not a Brazil. They are not a Germany. They are not an Argentina. They are none of those top-tier teams. Mexico is a second-tier soccer team. National team, I should say. You can make it out the group stage, but you'll never go far. Why? Because you're not as good as those other teams, and that's fine. But that's all I got to say about that. They need a new manager. I don't trust them to make the right hire. So now we move on to the MLS. MLS All-Star Game coming up. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and David Villa will not be playing in the All-Star Game against Juventus on Wednesday. Ibrahimovic not playing due to fatigue. Villa not playing because he's recovering from an injury. I mean, Ibrahimovic just played yesterday against Orlando City. Scored a hat trick. You expect him to play a couple days later? No, that's not going to happen. But, of course, game would have been a whole lot better if he did play because, I mean, the guy has been absolutely tearing it up since he's made his debut. The guy just scores goals. Wherever he goes, he's must-see TV. And, I mean, I was watching that ESPN show High Noon with Bomani Jones and Pablo Torre. They're not the biggest knowledgeable people amongst soccer or anything like that. Pablo Torre called Zlatan Ibrahimovic one of the best to ever play. Do people actually believe that? Is Ibra one of the best who ever played the game? I'd say no. I think that was a bit of an overreaction by Pablo Torre. But like I said, he's probably not the most knowledgeable when it comes to the game. But I mean, Ibra came into the league and now is second in goals. Of course, you got Joseph Martinez of Atlanta United, who is an absolute hat-trick machine, leading the league with 24, 10 above the next highest, which is Zlatan at 14. But of course, the guys came and basically conquered, like he said. I mean, it's ridiculous how often he scores and how many he scores. Let me see. I wonder if I could see how many games he's played this season. I don't think I'd be able to, because I think he came in mid-season, if I'm not mistaken. He's played 16 total matches so far in the MLS. 16. And he's got 14 goals. Scoring a goal every 83 minutes. I mean, the dude is, like I said, must-watch TV. It's ridiculous how well he plays. I mean, against Orlando City, they were down a couple times, and he brought them back. His hat trick, his third goal, was the game-winning goal for LA. And this is exactly what LA needed. They've been struggling. They were struggling to score before that. No real attacking option. Zlatan comes in, and, I mean, it's a completely different game for that team. Looking at the Western Conference, he comes in. Now they're in third. They weren't starting off the season too hot. I mean, this dude is a game changer. And remember when he was first brought onto LA, that segment we talked about where is it good for a guy like this to come to the MLS? It is. It is good for the league when stuff like this happens. You need big names, and you need big names playing well. And one thing that is great that happened to the league that we haven't talked about yet is Alphonso Davies of the Vancouver Whitecaps getting bought by Bayern Munich for $15 million. That is what the MLS needs in order to become a top league, I'd say. Because the more you develop talent and you're sending that talent out to big clubs, I mean, that's going to be good for the league. And let me say this, okay? This kind of goes hand in hand with Mexico national team and their expectations. The MLS will never be on the level of the EPL, German League, the Bundesliga, Serie A, or La Liga. Why? Because their league is ran differently from theirs. It's completely different. We run our leagues here as if they're franchises, meaning like the NFL does in the NBA. It's not ran like how it is out there. And people will say that's not a problem, but it is. The MLS will never reach that level because of it. But if the MLS is developing talent and sending them off to the bigger clubs, that will give the MLS more notoriety. You need guys like Alphonso Davies making a next step up to the big clubs. Okay, like I said, get rid of this pipe dream of the MLS one day being on par with the Premier League and all that, because it never will be. The expectations is to make it better than the Liga MX, which it's not yet. But I will say this, the MLS is starting to bring in more and more quality. So, we'll see. But like I said, as far as Ibra goes, I mean, the dude's been on an absolute tear. He's got the LA Galaxy playing well. A team who the last couple of years have been bringing on players on top of players on top of players, but not getting the results. You bring on Ibrahimovic, he scores goals, you get results. They had another thriller against LAFC in their match prior to their game against Orlando City, and they were down 2-0. I mean, same as the first game. And Ibra and the Galaxy got back into it and tied 2-2. And I mean, if you're LAFC, you got to think. You had them twice. And still, you weren't able to put them away. I mean, it's ridiculous. And look at LAFC, too. I mean, I like these expansion teams coming into the league and just dominating from the start. I mean, looking at Atlanta United. All right, Minnesota, not really up there, but either way, doing better than their prior season, I'd say. And as far as LAFC, I mean, they're only 6 points behind FC Dallas right now. And they got a game in hand on top of the LA Galaxy. We're currently in third. MLS is doing well. MLS is becoming a better product, I will say. Like I said, you need more Alphonso Davies type players. I remember when he made his debut for the Vancouver Whitecaps. I believe he was 15 at the time. And of course, a couple years later, here he is now heading to Bayern Munich. I mean, it's a solid move. Like I said, great for the MLS. They play Juventus on Wednesday, like I said, in their All-Star game. It's kind of weird how the MLS kind of runs their league as far as the All-Star game and all that. Like, they put it in a weird time in the middle of the season. Like, there's no real break. Like, you have Sunday's games, then Wednesday is the All-Star game, then you continue playing on Saturday. Why not give it like a week and a half, 2-week break? Make it a whole thing. Why doesn't the MLS just make it like a MLS All-Star Weekend type of thing? You could do, because like I said, NBA, they got dunk contest, 3-point contest, and all in the game on Sunday. The MLS, I'm sure you could figure out something, crossbar challenge, and a couple of other type of games on a Saturday, and then you have the game itself on a Sunday. That would be interesting to watch, and I'm sure fans would be willing to pay for it to go and see themselves. Why not do something like that if you're full-on American League franchise? I mean, Bundesliga doesn't have an all-star game or anything like that, so if you're going to be different, might as well go all the way. Okay. Well, we'll see. As far as the MLS goes, let's see what the standings are looking like right now. Let's head over to the East real quick. You got Atlanta United, like I said, in first. New York City in second. I believe David Villa is trying to get healthy for their next game against Atlanta United, so obviously that's more important than the All-Star game itself. You get the Red Bulls and Bradley Wright Phillips, who is the third leading scorer in the MLS, in third with 41 points. Columbus in fourth. Are they moving to Austin, or is that something that's been kind of shut down a bit? I know the whole Save the Crew hashtag and all that, but, I mean, who knows? Maybe Columbus makes a run in the playoffs, wins the title. Maybe that changes the owner's mind and they do end up staying in Columbus instead of going to Austin, Texas. You got Montreal in fifth, the Impact. New England in sixth. Then you got Philly in seventh, who are only a point behind New England. Chicago Fire in eighth. Orlando in ninth. Toronto 10th. DC United in 11th. Out west, you got FC Dallas, who have pretty much maintained themselves as far as being a top team in the MLS for quite some time. You got them in first. LAFC in second with 36 points, 6 behind FC Dallas. The Galaxy in third with 35 points. Portland in fourth. Kansas City in fifth. Salt Lake in sixth. You got Vancouver in seventh. Minnesota in eighth. Houston in ninth. Seattle 10th. Colorado 11th. And then San Jose, the worst team in the league, in 12th. San Jose, I mean, I blogged about them before. I was following them for a season, and I remember doing that and just thinking that this is one of the most boring things I've ever done in my life. It is ridiculous how, with the Earthquakes, they have had the same problem for the last 5 years and have had done nothing to fix that problem, and that's why they've been so bad. You had that 2012 season where you were great. After that, they've been terrible. Nothing has changed with this team. They can bring in whoever they want to be the GM, whoever they want to be the coach. Nothing has changed. They're still cheap. They don't bring in top players. They bring in scrubs from other European leagues to make it seem like, yes, we're actually doing something. And it does not work. I mean, it's ridiculous how bad this team can be. I don't even know why fans show up to the games. I get the whole supporting your team, but this team stinks. Might be the worst team in all of football. Meaning, out of every team in the world, the Earthquakes might be the worst. And people point out, oh, well, they tied Manchester United 0-0. Who cares? It was a friendly. It meant nothing. The Earthquakes are terrible. Absolutely terrible. All right? They built a new stadium. Whenever they play teams like Manchester United, they don't even play in that stadium. What was the point of building that if you're not going to bring big clubs there? I mean, it's ridiculous. Well, that's all I got to say about that. We're going to wrap it up here. Next up, I'm going to be talking about Neymar. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Spent that first segment talking about the unrealistic expectations of Mexico and also Juan Carlos Osorio not coming back as the manager. And then that second segment, we spent it talking about the MLS. This third segment now, we move on and talk about a certain Neymar. I mean, Neymar, it's not up for debate, is one of the three best players in the world. Love him or hate him, he is great at what he does. I mean, we've seen him at Barcelona. You saw him when he was younger playing for Santos at Brazil. And now he's over at PSG doing what he's always done, and that's score goals and create. I'd say that this World Cup for him was a disappointment. The one in 2014 was much better. If he doesn't get hit with the injury, maybe they end up making it to a final. Which, I mean, we could have had a Brazil and Argentina final. Neymar versus Messi. If he doesn't get hurt. Of course, he gets hurt. Thiago Silva was suspended for that match against Germany. That's the 7-1 match. I mean, that's one of the most iconic matches in the history of football, too, I'd say. The 7-1. I mean, with it being in Brazil, Brazil missing their best player, and just the fact they lost as poorly as they did, as badly as they did. I mean, this Brazil team was flying through that World Cup, and you got Germany putting, 5 goals on them in 30 minutes? 2 more to finish the game. You lose 7-1 in front of your home country in the biggest tournament of the world, literally. I mean, it's an iconic moment in the history of the game. It really is. It won't be something that's forgotten. I'll be telling my children about the 7-1 game. I mean, and that's just the way it is, of course. So they lose that. You come to 2018 and looking to avenge that loss. And I say they played as poorly, extremely poorly compared to 2014. I mean, a quarterfinal appearance and out. Not great. And of course, we went that entire tournament with the storyline being about Neymar. Meaning, the storyline was the fact that he dove a whole lot and rolled on the ground a whole lot. And he's come out and admitted, yes, he does exaggerate a bit. I wouldn't say a bit, I'd say a lot. When you're getting fouled and you're on the ground rolling around about 10 different times for about a couple minutes at each time, that's a problem. And I will say this. Neymar is probably the one who gets fouled the most. Like actual fouls. If you look past all the diving, he does get fouled quite a bit. But I don't think that leaves an excuse for him to dive the way that he does. Or for him to roll around the way that he does. Pick yourself up and move on. Getting fouled is part of the game. And he needs to realize that. No one's going to pay attention to the fact that he gets fouled so much. Everyone's going to pay attention to what's going to be the bigger story. That's him rolling around. We'll see now that he has made us aware that he's aware of it, if he stops it. But either way, I'm kind of curious about this season for him. We saw a World Cup where Mbappe stole the show. Was the story of the World Cup. France ends up winning the whole thing. Neymar left Barcelona to become the face of a team. He goes to PSG. He became that face. But he has become very unlikable. And Mbappe has become very popular and widely known. Even to the casual fan. And there's just a point where Mbappe might be taking the spotlight off of Neymar at PSG. That might be Mbappe's team. I mean, this entire World Cup, there wasn't one team who had an answer for Mbappe. The guy ran wherever he wanted, did whatever he wanted, scored whenever he wanted. It was a bit ridiculous. I mean, that Argentina game in the round of 16 was basically the coming out party for him. Argentina had no clue what to do with him. Scored 2 goals and even drew that penalty where he basically took it from France's 18 and took it all the way down by himself on an incredible run. Gets fouled in the box, and of course Griezmann hits the penalty there. Scores in the final. I mean, I think it is a very valid question. Is this going to affect Neymar? Neymar is a very ego-driven player. He is not like a Messi. He is like a Ronaldo. And I think he is worst as far as his ego when it comes to Ronaldo. I mean, I saw Neymar, a video of him playing in a five-a-side tournament. Didn't seem like it was anything serious or anything like that, but he's doing his little footwork or whatever, entertaining the crowd. The man that's defending him sticks his toe out and ends up winning the ball away from Neymar. Now, this wasn't like anyone on Neymar's level or anything like that as far as ability. But of course, he wins the ball. He's taking it down the wall, and Neymar throws his shoulder into him, throws him into the wall basically, and fouls him. Again, very, very unlikable. And stuff like that is just, it's pointless. I used to be a big fan of Neymar. Now, not at all. It's very annoying to watch him. All that talent, and he's got all that ego. And there's two different types of soccer players. There's the Neymars, and then there's the Pujols. The Neymars are about themselves. They want the flair. They want the looks and all that. They want to be famous. The Pujols, they are out there just to play the game because they love it, and they will do whatever they can to help their team. Now you can ask yourself, which one are you? Neymar's not very likable. The Pujols, you want those guys on your team. Alright? And I bring up those two because, I mean, they're very different. There's nothing similar about either of them. I mean, besides the fact that they were both great players. It's just one doing what he was doing, kept the nonsense out, and just played the game. The other, being Neymar, is all about the fame and all that, the look, and is about himself. Like I said, one's more likable than the other. When I say Neymar's not going to be too happy about Mbappe being the face of that PSG team. Because let's not forget, Neymar is playing in Mbappe's backyard. They're in France. They're not anywhere else. That French media is going to prop Mbappe up as the next coming for France. And you don't think that they're going to prop him up over with PSG? One of the best young players of the tournament, helped France win the World Cup, was a pivotal part of that team. Neymar's going to have to get used to taking a back seat here. Neymar's best bet if he wants to be the face of a team is to go to Madrid. But I think that's currently off the table. I think Madrid's more so moving on to Hazard. And that's fine for Madrid. But, yeah, hasn't really worked out for Neymar. He's not the face of PSG, or at least he isn't for much longer. Mbappe will soon be taking that over. And once he does, I'm sure we'll see Neymar moving somewhere else. Maybe he can make that move to Manchester United. That was rumored before he ended up going to PSG. I mean, it'll be interesting. At least I'll say that. All right. But, like I said, I mean, Neymar admitting that, yes, he does over-exaggerate is at least the start. But as far as, is it going to happen less? No. I'm sure it'll happen even more. So, we'll see what ends up happening with him and PSG this season. It's going to be interesting to see how that team works with Mbappe becoming the face of that team now. Because that's what he is. I mean, they're in France. Mbappe's French. PSG are the biggest club in France. I mean, put two and two together, please. So, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we'll be talking about anything else going on in the football/soccer world. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. So far today, we've talked about Mexico, we've talked about the MLS, and Neymar. Now, we move on and talk about anything else going on, anything that crosses my mind, or any other notable news. So let's see what else is going on. Ronaldo going to be joining, or he's already joined Juventus for his first training session. That team's going to be very good, let me tell you. I mean, it's a bit ridiculous how good they're going to be looking. Higuain up top, Ronaldo on one side, Dybala playing in behind Higuain. Still not over the fact that Sampaoli of Argentina decided to only play Dybala only 21 minutes that entire World Cup. One of the biggest tragedies in the World Cup. All right, I am over-exaggerating, but either way, I mean, it is a problem how you don't even find a place for him on the field. I don't understand that. So I'm assuming you'll go Higuain up top, Ronaldo on one side, Dybala in behind Higuain. Maybe a Douglas Costa on the right, possibly a Cuadrado. Go with Matuidi in the middle, along with Pjanic. I mean, this team is built to win the Champions League. And again, imagine if they end up winning the Champions League without Buffon. I mean, that's the one trophy he's been looking for. And if he leaves PSG and Juventus end up winning it, I mean, that's the ultimate bad luck right there. And like I said, I've mentioned it before. You don't think that Juventus maybe told Buffon, hey, maybe stick around? We might be getting Ronaldo. Like that's a possibility. You could get your Champions League win if we end up getting Ronaldo. Like, no one ever thought to tell Buffon that, or were just negotiations taking place after that happened. I'm not too sure. But either way, you got Ronaldo joining up with Juventus now, training with them. I mean, it's going to be very, very different watching him play for Juventus. I remember him vivid, like barely, a tiny bit, towards the last couple of years of his career with Manchester United playing there. I remember Ronaldo more so playing with Madrid. I remember when he first got there, when they first introduced him and all that. Now we got him over at Juventus, and Juventus are going to be looking to become, once again, the next great team in Europe. I'd say right now, as far as the favorites for Champions League wins, it's them in Barcelona. Then I'd say you got Manchester City, Liverpool, and Real Madrid. Not in any order, those last three, but either way, I'd say that Juventus and Barcelona are the favorites to win it this year. So there's that. One team who is really impressing me is Arsenal. They brought in Emery from PSG to be their new manager. He's now taken over for Wenger. And with the players they've brought in and the way they've played so far, there's no reason not to get excited about this team. Arsenal have seemed to be trapped, I'd say, the last couple of years under Wenger. Wenger was a great coach, but overstayed his welcome there and probably should have ended up leaving a long while ago. Of course, now, either way, he's gone, and it's a new era over with Arsenal. I mean, looking at their team, you got Emery being the manager. All right, you got Aubameyang, Lacazette, Ozil, Ramsey, Mkhitaryan, Bellerin. All right. Defense, yeah, Koscielny and all those guys, I do think they maybe need to make another move or two, but I do like them bringing on Leno. No reason as to why Czech should start for this team ever again, unless it's a cup match if they keep him this season. Leno needs to be the everyday keeper for them in the Premier League. He's that good. Okay. And I just think Arsenal has a real solid chance at falling into the top four this season. Do not be surprised if they are competing for a title this season either. I mean, because of course, Manchester City and Liverpool are your favorites. Then you got United. And I'd put Arsenal up there with United. I think Tottenham come in right behind that. Tottenham are kind of scaring me with their transfer window, given they have not bought anyone. They have stayed the same. You do not get better by staying the same. That just doesn't happen that way. You still have no backup striker for Harry Kane, no one who could come in and score goals. And I just think it's a point where if you're not upgrading and you're staying the same, everyone's going to pass you up. And I think that's what Spurs are doing right now. They're in a real good period of time amongst their team the last couple of years. All right. Have played well in Champions League, have played well in the Premier League. Now it's time to start taking those next steps. But if you're not buying players, then you're not able to take those next steps. So it's going to be interesting to see if they end up doing anything remaining in the transfer window. Because if they don't end up buying any new players, talking about Tottenham, I'd say Arsenal take their spot in the top 4. And I'd say, yeah, right now, the favorites to make top 4 for me are City, Liverpool, United, and Arsenal. And mentioning United, I mean, this preseason tour for them has not gone great at all. They've not played well. Mourinho has just seemingly not made any good comments since they've been here. And it just seems like there's a lot of mind games going on. And it just seems like this is one where it could be Mourinho's last season. That's what it's building towards, I think. And I think Manchester United need to realize that a lot of the reason why they're the club that they are is because of Sir Alex Ferguson. And Sir Alex Ferguson isn't coming through that door. So maybe we're seeing a new era of Manchester United here. One where you don't have Sir Alex Ferguson to prop you up and make you that great team. Because if you look at some of his teams, I mean, a lot of the time he didn't even have the best quality of players out there that another team would. But he knew what their strengths were and he knew how to make them productive. These managers that they brought in are buying all kinds of players, and that's kind of gone away from what Manchester United used to do. Manchester United would buy players, but they wouldn't be too flashy. They'd be guys who can come in and do a job at their position. And that's just not the case anymore, like I said. This preseason has not been great for them. And of course, you can't look too much into preseason results or anything like that, but there's been more trouble than there has been, I guess, non-trouble for United. I mean, if you're going to go in and draw your preseason games, fine, but there's been way too many quotes that we can take away from this team this summer that are problems, like I said. So it'll be interesting to see how their season plays out. Manchester United could be a team who falls out of the top 4 for Arsenal. Like, that's a possibility. So, I mean, like I said, we'll see. As of right now, Manchester City are your favorites to win that league. Then I'd say it goes Liverpool after that. City, I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of talent they got on that team. And I'm curious to see what Chelsea does this season. Last year wasn't a great one, and usually it's been they win the league title, have a bad season, fire the manager, bring in a new one, do well the upcoming season. I'm not sure that's going to be the case coming up this year. I don't think they make the top 4 as of right now. That could change, but either way, looking at it, I don't see it. I think there's too many questions right now. Is Hazard going to be with them this season, or is he going to be in Madrid? Are they getting rid of Willian? Who knows? All right. I mean, of course, you got a great midfield. Brought in Jorginho, got Conte there. I mean, that's going to be tough to get past. And as far as their defense, I like it. It's just the attacking, I think, is where the questions are at. So we'll see what ends up happening with them. And as for Liverpool, I mean, like I've said before, this is a year where they have to step forward instead of stepping back how they've used to. We saw that one year with Brendan Rodgers where they nearly won the title, finished in second. The year after that, they finished 8th. Have been seemingly trying to come back for that since. Liverpool have not been a year-to-year consistent team. Is that going to be the case this season? Or are they going to maintain being one of the best teams in England? That's what I'm most curious about. And I think that they will be. I mean, Mo Salah is already back with them for preseason. He's already scoring goals. The dude is a great player. Easily the best player on their team. If their defense can hold up and their attack continues to play that they did this past season, there should be no problem with his team and being in Europe and in the Premier League. Okay. So, I mean, I expect another big year out of Liverpool. It seems like it's been a year-to-year process for Jurgen Klopp, and it seems like it's finally going to start paying off. So, we'll see how it all goes down. But either way, we're going to wrap it up here for today. Today we talked, Mexico national team, MLS, Neymar, and a lot of the Premier League for this segment. So, thanks for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back next Monday, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.